Well, the Young Turks, fun show ahead for you guys. We do have Larry Lessig on the program. He's going to give us the other side of the Lana Kagan equation. Yesterday we had Glenn Greenwald on, and he was not buying it. Larry Lessig is buying it, and he's going to do a spirited defense of Kagan here. I will enthusiastically ask him about that and see what kind of evidence he's got on her behalf. And he's a guy that I profoundly respect. In fact, there's a second story out about Larry Lessig today, which is incredibly good news. All right, so I will share that with you in a little bit as well. And then, of course, we've got 100 different things on Kagan. Of course, as predicted, they're coming after her sexuality. What is it? Is she gay? Does she play softball? I am not kidding you. I'm not kidding you, okay? So that's going to come up in a little bit. What did I tell you? I told you they were going to be asinine. I told you, right? And then they're going to make us defend her, even though I don't even necessarily agree with the thing. Okay, so that's coming. And then, I've got Baby Ken, I got Megyn Kelly. Oh, and I got a story about Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough that drove me nuts. Okay, so later in the program, I get driven nuts. But let's start with Rent Boys. You remember the George Reckers story? This is the guy who was one of the original founding fathers of the Family Research Council and also of North, which advocates therapy to convert gays and fights scientific research suggesting that such treatment is not possible. Okay, so this guy is not gay, except that we have found his gay lover. Okay, now we did this story before. CNN has more details. They found Lucien, the boy that he rented for his trip. This is a fun story. Let's watch.
He calls himself Lucien. He's a paid male escort who says he only advertises his services on the website rentboy.com, where visitors can select among hundreds of male escorts who advertise in suggestive and revealing poses. That website is where Lucien says he was first contacted by George Rakers, a professor and Baptist minister who has weighed in on almost every piece of anti-gay legislation around the country. What's not in dispute is that Rakers and Lucien just returned from a 2-week European vacation, and that Lucien was hired to help with the bags. This photo was snapped at Miami International Airport. But Lucien also says for the trip to Madrid and London, he was to give Rakers what Lucien called sexual massages every day.
He basically got excited. That was the whole case.
So he wanted you to touch him?
Well, yeah.
Did you have sex with him on the trip?
No.
Did he ask to?
Not at all.
Lucien showed me the contract he signed with Rakers. For $75 a day, it says he must carry the bags, provide a massage for at least 1 hour every day of the trip in their shared room, plus spend at least 8 hours a day with him, including 2 meals. On Rakers' website, a very different account of how he met Lucien, by interviewing different people who might be able to help, and did not even find out about his travel assistant's internet advertisements offering prostitution activity until after the trip was in progress.
Sure.
There was nothing inappropriate with this relationship.
No.
And he emphasized he was not involved in any illegal or sexual behavior with his travel assistant. Rakers is a board member for NARTH, the National Association for Research and Therapy of Homosexuality, a group that says it helps people with, quote, unwanted homosexual attractions. He's also the co-founder of the Family Research Council, which promotes the traditional family unit. And in 2008, here in Florida, George Rakers served as an expert witness in a case to uphold the law banning gays and lesbians from adopting. In his writings, he called gays a, quote, deviant segment of society. The state of Florida paid him about $120,000 for his testimony. Attorney General Bill McCollum's office told us Rakers was recommended after an exhaustive search and because he had, quote, exceptional credentials. Wayne Besson is with Truth Wins Out, a group that exposes what it sees as hypocrisy in the anti-gay movement.
He has helped create anti-gay attitudes and justify discrimination across the country. It seems Rakers doesn't think gay people should raise boys, they think he should rent boys. So I think he's quite the hypocrite there.
Lucien says Rakers knew he was gay before the trip because he had told him about his boyfriends.
Does he still deny to you that he's gay?
Yeah.
You know, I actually asked him over the phone, you know, do you think you're gay? And he just said no.
Lucian told me Rakers had asked him not to share his story with the media.
He just didn't want me to mention the massage aspect, you know. That's what it really was.
And he asked you not to?
Yeah, he had asked me not to.
In response to the publicity, Narth, where Rakers is a board member, released this statement saying it takes seriously the accusations that have been made. In response to an email from CNN, Rakers wrote, "I am retaining the services of a defamation attorney in this matter because the fact is, I am not gay and never have been." Lucian, meanwhile, says he feels sorry for Rakers. He enjoyed their European vacation together and would like to be his friend. He wants him to stop making anti-gay statements. Randy Kay, CNN, Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Research Council, which George Rakers helped found.
And then Anderson Cooper had some great denials by all the organizations he's ever been involved with. The Family Research Council was like, what? Rakers? I don't know. Was he a founder of this organization? We had to go look it up in our records. And guess what you found out? Yeah, he was one of the founders. Okay. Like, oh, we haven't seen that dude in 10 years, man. I remember when he was straight. I don't know anything about him being gay. That put me in trouble. I don't know nothing about that. All right. Now, Rakers said originally that, oh, yeah, you know, I didn't know he was gay, and you know, I didn't get him through Rentboy, which is actually totally not true. He found him on rentboy.com. But Lucian shows up to carry your bags, and you have him sign a contract to give you massages every single day and to share 2 meals with you and be a traveling companion, and he must be in the same room with you for 8 hours, and you didn't figure out Lucian was gay? Come on, dude. Come on. And then they're like, were the massages sexual? He's like, oh, yeah. But no, we didn't have sex. No. Just I went to work on him. That's all. Oh, Rakers, who are you kidding, man? Who are you kidding? And did you see the picture where Rakers is carrying the bags? And the Red Boy's on the side just hanging out, chilling, relaxing? Oh, it's fantastic stuff. And who, if you're like this crazy anti-gay dude, why did you write a contract saying, I would like this young, fresh boy to give me massages every day? Why did you write that contract? It's so obvious. If we had no other information, if we never saw Lucian, we didn't know you went to rentboy.com, if I read a contract, some old dude takes some young dude on a vacation and demands he get massages every day and eats meals with him, etc. I don't know. Let me put 2 and 2 together, see what kind of number I come up with. What I come up with is that you're gay. Okay, and I like how Lucian threw him under the bus. He's like, yeah, he asked me not to talk about this. Oh, is this CNN? Oh, okay. You know what's going to happen with Lucian? Oh, he's going to be in high demand. That's what's going to happen. Lucian, nicely played. Okay, because once anybody gets famous like that, everybody's going to go to rentboy.com for Lucian, who's gay. Look, I could be wrong. I'm not part of the community. Okay, I just go on vacation with the young boys, but I'm not part of the community. You better not take that out of context, J.R. Jackson. Okay. All right, now there's one other aspect to this Rakers story, which is disturbing. Rakers, of course, is this guy who claims that homosexuality is a terrible thing. He goes on a vacation with rentboy.com. And we come to find out how Rakers gets paid, and this is very interesting. So Rakers is a so-called expert on curing homosexuality and all the things that are wrong with homosexuality. He claims he's done scientific research. Well, scientific is a big question mark, right? But here's the part that drove me crazy. Do you know that different states have paid Rakers a tremendous amount of money for his expert testimony? Now, for example, in the state of Florida, they were debating the issue of whether there should be gay adoption or not. Now, at the time, Bill McCollum is, and he still is the Florida Attorney General. And Florida has the most restrictive ban on gay adoption. So now he's got to justify that. But he can't find any experts who think it's a terrible idea to do this, right? Because there are no scientific experts who believe that. So he's got to go find somebody like Rakers. So he gets Rakers to come and testify with his expertise on it. Later, when challenged on it, McCollum says, well, there wasn't a whole lot of choice, meaning there wasn't anybody who anybody else in the country who testified to that. So I had to hire this one guy who we know is in our back pocket, as it were. Now, are you ready to get outraged? Do you know how much they paid Rakers for his testimony? $120,000. $120,000 just to get up there and say, oh, yeah, I don't like gays. I don't think gays should be allowed to adopt. So where's your scientific evidence? I don't know. Dude, come on. It's in the Bible. Now, you think I'm making that up? No. Listen to the judges. Okay, here's what Miami-Dade Circuit County Judge Cindy Lederman wrote in 2008. Raker's testimony was far from neutral and unbiased recitation of relevant scientific evidence. Dr. Raker's beliefs are motivated by his strong ideological and theological convictions that are not consistent with the science. Based on his testimony and demeanor at trial, the court cannot consider his testimony to be credible nor worthy of forming the basis of public policy. Florida taxpayers, you just flushed $120,000 down the toilet. Now, I thought you guys were fiscal conservative. Bill McCollum now running to be the governor of Florida as the Republican nominee. Now, does that sound like fiscally conservative thing to do? This guy comes up for a couple of days and tells you how much he doesn't like gays. The judge throws it out and says it's absurd, and you just lost $120,000 of taxpayer money. But it's not the only scam he's run. It's not just Florida. He went to Alabama, did the same thing. He charged them $165,000 for his expert testimony. Later, when they wouldn't pay the bills, he said, all right, I'm cranking it up to $200,000. Here's what the judge in Arkansas, not Alabama, if I misstated that. In the Arkansas gay adoption case, the Pulaski County Circuit Judge Timothy Fox said Raker's testimony was, quote, extremely suspect, and that Rakers was, quote, there primarily to promote his own personal ideology. So Arkansas didn't want to pay him. They negotiate back and forth. Finally, he skinned $60,000 from the taxpayers of Arkansas. So, I mean, does it pay to be anti-gay even if you're gay? Apparently so. And that's how this scam goes. And they support the conservative politicians. The conservative politicians get in office. They support them by getting them this money back, taxpayer money back. Oh, you don't like gay people? Here's $120,000 to tell me that for one day. Man, if that is just outrageous. So that's where the story goes from funny to not funny at all. Now, Bill McCollum, of course, as he's running for governor, is backpedaling like crazy out of this. He's like, I didn't know this. I didn't know about Rent Boy. He's like, man, if I'd known about Rent Boy, I definitely wouldn't have gone there. I'd have found some other bigot to come in here and tell us how terrible gays are and how they shouldn't adopt. And maybe I'd have paid him $150,000. But I didn't mean to give it to a gay guy. Wow, okay, thank you. That's, very generous of you. Are you not merciful? The reason he couldn't find anybody else to do it is because there is no scientific evidence that gay adoption scars the kids or anything like that. It's just this guy who's gay who hates himself, who gets up there on the testimony, calls himself Dr. Rakers, and says, oh, no, gays, they do terrible damage. Sometimes they chafe my back after the massage. All right, so that's Raker's story for you. Man, when I found out how much money they were spending on him, I got so mad. All right, then I saw that CNN story and was amused. Okay, here we go. One more amusing / maddening story for you. Baby Cannon is going to go on CNN, and she's going to tell us about how Obama is dumbing down the court by picking the dean of Harvard Law School. This ought to be good. Clip number 3.
The way this guy thinks, he served in the state legislature. I think the next Supreme Court just be John Grisham. I think he'd do a hell of a job, and that way they couldn't complain about somebody who hadn't written anything.
Well, you know what this says about Obama? He's gone safe. It's an election year. He doesn't want too much controversy. Let's pick somebody that hasn't done anything. Very, very safe. We go to Harvard. Everybody will say it is absolutely true. What makes her qualified? She has not. Being a president of Harvard makes you qualified. It does not. What he's done is dummy down. Absolutely not. He has dummied down the Supreme Court. He has given 2 of the best appointments of his administration to people who are not the best and the brightest.
In fairness to these women, Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan, both of them everybody who's dealt with them, including their critics, say they're both very, very intelligent women.
Listen, Harriet Mier is an intelligent woman.
Yeah.
She was a fine, just as fine an attorney as you could be. She was president of the bar. And I, David, you might want to know this, was opposed to her because I didn't think she came from that level.
You were opposed because you didn't think she was conservative enough.
I wasn't. I think it should go to the best. This is the Olympics of the, the legal field.
All
The
right,
finest
David, go ahead.
minds.
I don't understand why someone who has lived a life of excellence, someone who has distinguished herself in role after role, including that of Solicitor General, can possibly be described as someone who is sort of mediocre. He's gone to a choice of quality. She is not controversial, but we all know, given the polarization and the poison that's in the United States Senate, if you put somebody up there as controversial, they're going to kill him. And they're just going to put daggers in him. And so he's gone to someone who's qualified, who is quality, who represents excellence.
James, go ahead. One final thought from you.
I mean, this is stunning. We have the dean of the Harvard Law School and accusing the president of dumbing down the Supreme Court. That woman might be a lot of things, but I suspect dumb is not one of them. I don't believe that spaghetti's going to stick on the wall.
No skull.
All right. You gotta like James Carville there. I don't think that spaghetti's going to stick on the wall. Woo! I like that. All right. Look, the first thing that Buchanan said is something that I've said. It was a safe choice, right? And it drives us crazy because we don't know much about her record. We've talked about it a lot, right? But here's two things she is not. Unqualified? No, come on now. Dean of Harvard Law School, Solicitor General, worked in several administrations. No, eminently qualified. That's not the issue, okay? Now, would I have preferred a sitting judge who has more of a record on where she or he stands? Sure, I would have, right? But you can't call Elana Kagan not qualified. And to compare her to Harriet Miers, please, Harriet Miers was Bush's secretary. Oh, come on. You can't believe that. Nobody believes that. And here's another thing Elana Kagan is not. Dumb. But look, you see, that's the thing. That's why conservatives drive people crazy, man. You hear Babe Buchanan call Elana Kagan, with an impeccable background in academics, and as we've said now 3 times, the dean of Harvard Law School, and Sonia Sotomayor, again, impeccable record, at the top of her class, graduated with honors from Princeton, et cetera, et cetera. You can't call them dumb. They're not dumb. The only reason you're calling them dumb is what? Because you don't agree with them? I'm being really generous there. Or you're implying, well, they're women. And Babe Buchanan as a woman, that makes it even extra despicable. And who's the only other example she had? Harriet Miers, another woman. Okay, now Harriet Miers kind of deserves it. Okay, and look, the thing is, to be fair, all kidding aside, I don't think Harriet Miers is dumb. She just wasn't qualified for that position at all, not even remotely so. And her academic background is 2% of Elana Kagan or Sonia Sotomayor. But it's just, these are convenient attacks, and no matter who they put up there, especially if they're a woman or a minority, and Sotomayor went through that a lot, well, then she's dumb. Because the only smart people in the country are white males. That's the given assumption. All right, we come back with Larry Lessig, who's going to do a hell of a lot more defense of Elana Kagan. All right, Young Turks. Back on the Young Turks. Now I want to tell you about a story I heard on another program, which doesn't happen that often, another progressive program, and it's very, very important. And I was actually watching Tom Hartman, and he mentioned an article from the Wall Street Journal on February 26th of this year. And honestly, I got to keep it real with you. I thought Tom misinterpreted it in some ways. Okay. But it is an enormously important article, and I'm so glad I was watching this show to have heard him talking about that. And so what was this article? It was about hedge funds who had gotten together in a meeting that was supposed to be a little bit secret. Well, look, they're running private money, so of course they're not going to do that in public. And I don't think there's anything particularly nefarious about that, but the Wall Street Journal found out about it, and they wrote about it. And what they were going to do is they were going to short Greece, for example. And we see how that turned out. That turned out to be a really smart bet. And they made a ton of money from it. In fact, at the time, now this was, there was already blood in the water, and Greece already had troubles, right? But they had not got into as much trouble as they are in now. Hans Hufschmidt, a former senior Salomon Brothers executive. I mean, they're like out of comic books. But anyway, he said, this is an opportunity to make a lot of money. And he was right. And so now, why do I think that Tom misinterpreted this article a little bit? He said, look, these are the vultures, and we got to stop these guys, et cetera, et cetera. Now, they are the vultures, and I don't think they should be allowed to make their derivatives bets. And it has, like the vultures, they carry disease, and it's got issues, et cetera. But I don't think they're the bad guys. I don't think they're the central problem. They're actually the smartest guys who see the underlying fundamental problems. They go, look, we get a sense that Greece can't pay back the money that they owe. So we're going to make the bet on the opposite side of that. That's what being short means. Being long means I'm making that bet. I think Greece can pay its loans back, for example, right? Being short means I don't think they can. I'm going to bet against them, right? So they went short and they were right and they made a lot of money. Now, the problem, like it's as if there was a gun battle, or it wasn't even a battle. A guy takes out a gun, boom, shoots somebody dead, and then the vultures come. Well, you're concerned about the vultures, but what I'm more concerned about is the guy who took out the gun and shot the guy dead, right? So as these guys were talking, the part of the article that I thought was so interesting, and why I'm bringing it to your attention now is, they said, oh, we got to short Greece, then we got to short Europe, because we think the euro is way overvalued, and that was partly because of Greece's problems, and mainly they're going after the euro, okay? And again, they were right on that. Then after they're done with that, and it's not all of them necessarily, and I want to be fair here, but I'll give you an exact quote. Donald Morgan, head of the hedge fund Brigade Capital, told the group that he believed Greek debt is an early domino to fall in a contagion that will eventually hit U.S. companies, U.S. municipalities, and United States Treasury securities. Do you understand what that means? That's monumentally important. That means the smartest guys in the business, these guys who made billions doing this, and we're right about Greece, we're right about the euro, they think we're next. The vultures are circling around us. The United States Treasury securities, they think, if you think Treasury securities should be shorted, well, then like I said, everything is going to cave in on itself. That means you think we're going to have a global economic collapse like we've never seen before. They're starting to short us. You understand? Now, we're worried about the vultures, and we should be, because they shouldn't be allowed to make those side bets. And those side bets are dangerous. Okay, but they're not the ultimate bad guys here. They're the ones who saw the shooting. And they're coming to make money off the shooting, right? We got to be worried about the shooter. And in this case, the shooter are the guys who have driven the economy into the ground in the first place. And those are, in not just my opinion, but based on the evidence that we have, are our banks. Hedge funds and banks are different. The institutional banks, they make derivatives bets. If they lose, we pay the bill. If a hedge fund loses, most of the time, a great majority of the time, they lose. Sad day for them. That's the kind of capitalism I can live with, okay? And if they win, they win. Now, unfortunately, when they win, a lot of that gets transferred over to our bill anyway. But they're looking at how unsustainable our economy has become because of our financial markets. And they think, time to go short. We'll make a lot of money when America goes under. Look, I don't know if I can convey with enough strength the idea of how important these guys thinking they should short Treasury securities is. It's one thing to short a U.S. company. It's another thing to short a local municipality, and that's the real trouble if they think, for example, California can't pay their bills. That's amazing, right? And not in the short term, but in the long term. But if they're shorting the entire United States Treasury, I think we have no idea what kind of trouble we're in. The vultures are up in the air, and we don't know it. Another thing that they mentioned is that we're bullish, that they're bullish on gold because of inflation concerns. That goes to my concerns about stagflation. I think we're going to have enormous unemployment and enormous inflation. That hasn't come yet, but it will. You can't keep interest rates this low and not expect that kind of inflation. And as Nouriel Roubini said yesterday, we're reinflating the bubble. You put all this stuff together, and it's a frickin' disaster. Here's who you don't want to be on the other side of the bet with, these guys. And that's where we are today. Okay, now here's somebody who wants to help. And, you know, as much as we get frustrated at the Democrats and the progressives, and if you heard any of the program today, you know I get frustrated. There are some guys who are actually doing a great job, and thank God they're there. Okay, one of them is Al Franken. You remember how the Republicans went after him? Oh, he's a comedian. Oh, he wrote an article on Playboy. Oh, please. Franken has already proved himself to be leagues above 90% of the senators there. So what did he do? He put together an amendment saying, look, one of the principal problems we have is that the ratings agencies are not honest because they don't have the right incentives. So this is so important because if you're going to buy something, right, your pension fund, all the money you saved up, that's in a pension fund. They go to buy a security or a bond or whatever they might buy. They're going to make that decision based on what the rating agencies say. Is it safe? Is it AAA, for example? And if they say it's safe, then they put your pension in it. And if it turns out it's not safe, you lost your pension. Now, the problem is that the rating agencies don't get paid by the people making the investments, like your pension fund. They get paid by the banks, who are on the opposite side of the trade. So, for example, the banks will ask raters for a preliminary review. So, for example, they put together a toxic asset full of subprime loans that they know is crap. They'll go to Standard & Poor's and Moody's, and they'll say, tell me what you think your rating is, and then according to that, I'll either give you millions of dollars in business and have you rated, or I won't. Now, what do you think they're going to do, given that incentive? They're going to go, oh, this is a great asset, AAA. Oh, good, you're going to give me millions? Fantastic, give it to me. Now, Franken realizes that that incentive system is perverse and will continue to lead to rating things AAA when they're not and lead to us losing our money, right? So he says, no, let's do it in a different way. The way it would be done under his amendment is a bank would be randomly assigned a rating agency, and companies who consistently delivered inaccurate results would then be penalized with less business. So you don't get to pick your rating agency. You get assigned a rating agency, and then if they keep being wrong, they're not going to get more money as they do now. They're going to get less money. It's genius. It's exactly right. It's in fact not even genius. It's obvious. But nobody else proposed it. And he's picking up more and more co-sponsors to it. And plus, the other additional benefit is from time to time they would give contracts to smaller companies, breaking up the oligopoly that Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch has, right? So who would be against this? Who in their right mind would be against this? Well, of course, the people who want to protect the banks. The banks make a lot of money with the false ratings that they are buying from these companies. So they want to kill this bill. Now, how people vote on this bill will tell you, okay, because there's no excuse. To give you a sense of how little excuse there is, even when they asked Standard & Poor's spokesman about this, now, of course, he hates this because Standard & Poor's will get more money if they just give out any rating that the banks want. The banks will basically bribe them with bigger and bigger checks, right? So they don't like this. So one of his excuses was, no, if you make the ratings that accurate, people will overly rely on the ratings. That is the single worst excuse I have ever heard. You don't want our ratings to be that accurate because then people will rely on them. No, I do want them to be that accurate. Okay, so every senator who votes against Franken's amendment, there's no ands, ifs, or buts, is declaring, I am against the American people. I am in favor of the large banks ripping us off. I am a corporatist, and I do not give a damn about anybody who voted for me. I give a damn about the bankers who are financing my elections and who later will pay me a nice fat fee when I retire. There's never been a clearer vote than this. And right now, I do not know where the Obama administration stands on this. I have not seen any reports on it. If the Obama administration is against this Franken amendment, they are hopeless. That means that Tim Geithner has convinced Obama, and ultimately the president is completely responsible to protect the bankers at all costs and against all reason. So that's why I've spent so much time on this, because I think this Franken amendment is an excellent bellwether of where we're going, or whether it passes or it doesn't, and who's on which side. Now, they haven't voted on it yet. When they do, we'll know. and I'll let you know. All right, Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur and Master Casper. Uh-oh, we got a new one. Think about it, Master Casper. Graduation's next week, huh?
It is next week. I'm excited.
A little exciting.
My mic is on. Yeah, it is on.
Okay. All right. Now we got a crazy hour ahead for you guys. Who is this Lady Gaga? What's her story?
I think that's my favorite video of the day. I can't wait to get to it. It's going to be good. Andy Rooney. We never talk about Andy Rooney, but he needs to be talked about.
He needs to be talked about, and he will be talked about in this hour. All right, we got a lot of stories. Let's do it.
We do. We're going to start with an update, and it has to do with Lawrence Taylor. Now, of course, for those of you who have been living under a rock, don't know who Lawrence Taylor is and what he's doing, he is a former NFL legend who was arrested and charged with third-degree rape and third-degree patronizing of a prostitute. He allegedly slept with a 16-year-old prostitute. However, TMZ is reporting that he might deny that and say that he just masturbated with her.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's pretty good excuse. First of all, I love how she's like, if you've been living under a rock, you don't know who Lawrence Taylor is. Guaranteed she had no idea 2 weeks ago.
I knew.
Guaranteed. Okay.
I knew.
All right. Yeah. I know. Master Casper, teach it, preach it. Number 2, is it possible that Lawrence Taylor just went to work on himself with a prostitute? Yes, it is possible.
I don't believe it.
Is it? Okay, hold on now. Is it likely? No. It's not at all likely.
Well, anything's possible.
Right. No, some dudes, they'll get massages like that rent boy guy, right? Who had the gay guy go to work on him, throughout his body. Okay, so that happens. Now, he claims, no, conveniently, I didn't touch her at all. I just want to work on myself. But there are allegations of oral sex going back and forth, and I don't think you get a prostitute, in his situation. It's like, and just have her, chill out in the corner.
By the way, he also admitted to paying $300. He paid $300 to go to work on himself?
Yeah.
Like, who's going to buy that? That's a bad defense.
I don't know if he knows this. The internet is free.
That's true.
Okay, yes, JR.
But these are all speculations, though. This is in court,
speculation,
as Bush would say.
Yes.
So you can't say, well, why would he do that? So, cut it out. Or nobody would pay that much to cut out. All these make sense. Mm-hmm. But you can't just say that and have it be a court thing. Now, the thing is, last I heard, you can find out if someone was raped. There's physical evidence, I thought. I don't know. Maybe check her out.
But
I don't know.
No, it had a couple of things, okay? Number 1, it could be statutory rape, okay? Now, in this case, it doesn't appear as he's charged with statutory rape, which is kind of weird. Unless I'm reading the New York law wrong, it might be classified under that category that Anna referred to. Number 2, JR, no, it could be that she was so drugged up that she wasn't conscious and didn't know what was going on, and that could be rape.
But there'll be physical evidence if someone's had sex. That you can see this.
Not necessarily.
Even if it's consensual, doesn't tell if it was consensual. It was happened.
I hear you. First of all, if you use protection, there might not be very much physical evidence at all. Number 2, the allegation, I believe, is oral sex, which then again there would be, less physical evidence depending on the circumstances. So now, and JR, they go to court, and if it turns out there isn't physical evidence, right, for whatever reason, but she says, oh, here's the situation, here's what happened, and he says, no, I just was sitting in the corner. If the jury thinks, no, I don't believe you and I believe her, that's it. And there's nothing wrong with making that decision based on those facts, okay? And then at which point, all right, well, then we've got a conviction, and, all that he said, she said's out the door because we already had a trial. But they might not get that conviction because of lack of evidence, etc. So that's definitely true, and it might just not have happened.
I would love for it, if he did do it, for him to get convicted. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. I would hate for him to get convicted because we're like, that doesn't make any sense. That's not how it works, does it?
Mm-hmm. Well, a little bit.
it's supposed to be proven.
No, I know, but you can prove a case, but with circumstantial evidence. Mm-hmm. Like, in the TV trials, the TV court scenes, they're all like, circumstantial evidence. Like, as if, that's it. It doesn't count.
Right.
Okay, no, circumstantial evidence totally counts. You just got to convince the jury, that's all. And that's impossible to know at this point, whether they're going to have it beyond a reasonable doubt for a jury, etc. Mm-hmm. Look, he was there, something happened, and like I said yesterday, we've got to find out if he had any way of knowing she was underage, if he forced her at all or not. And those are two critical issues. I mean, JR is right to point out that at this point, we really don't have very much information on whether those two critical facts go one way or another. We really don't. We know enough about the guy who drugged her, the pimp who brought her in. You know, I feel comfortable enough saying that guy's, you know, is honestly totally guilty. I mean, obviously, we're going to have a trial. I'm not a Republican, right? I don't think we should take away his Miranda rights. But it looks like that guy's guilty. Lawrence Taylor is guilty of something, but the severity is an enormous range. So let's see how it plays out.
All right, we have a sex scandal in a middle school, and this is at Haydock Intermediate School in Oxnard, California. 2 middle school students were allegedly having oral sex in a classroom while their classmates were taping and while allegedly the teacher was there watching but didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, the teacher situation is a little bit more unclear. Let's watch a video of a local news story about it. And by the way, boy, do they seem to be enjoying this. They're like, oh, they're so excited about this story. Okay, so, and then we'll come back, of course, make fun of them, and then talk about the story. All right.
Is rocking a middle school community in Southern California.
Rocking.
Some students and parents say a boy and girl had a sexual encounter in the middle of class and that the teacher ignored it. KTLA's Chris Wolf joins us live from Oxnard with the shocking details here. Chris.
Shocking.
Leela, good afternoon. We are learning more about this story every hour, and it becomes more shocking all the time.
Shocking.
Now, right behind me is the place where some people claim the sex act took place, Haydock Junior High School here in Oxnard. They say it happened in the middle of a packed classroom and that other students recorded it on their cell phones while the teacher was sitting nearby. School administrators say the case started as a complaint about a bully, and that investigation led to the shocking allegations of sex in class.
Shocking.
Reports say it happened in late March or early April during a reading class at Haydock Junior High. Claims are that an 8th grade boy and 7th grade girl engaged in oral sex in the middle of the classroom while a film was showing. A parent and school district employee tells me other students watched and even took video and snapshots with their cell phones. The woman's name is Sylvia Ramirez, and she says she's seen the sex tape and that it sickened her. She also works in a school cafeteria and claims her job was threatened if she talked to reporters about what she knows. But she is talking. She says the teacher was sitting in class and simply ignored what was happening.
When somebody fights after school or inside a playground, they call the whole SWAT team for it. I think this is more serious. Very serious. And then he took it seriously? I'm a parent. I don't recall signing any documents when the school started that I was going to sign for live sex in the classroom.
I read that the teacher's on paid administrative leave right now.
That's correct.
Is that standard procedure?
That's a standard procedure we do in every instance when the district is conducting an investigation. One, so that the witnesses don't have an opportunity to interact, and 2, to protect the privacy of the students and the teacher.
And back here live at the school, the boy and girl who may have had a sexual encounter in class are still at school. And the assistant superintendent tells me that parents, teachers, and students are still being interviewed. And at this point, nothing is confirmed. But if administrators determine that this is all true, then appropriate action will be taken against the 2 students and the teacher. We will have much more on this coming up tonight at 6. For now, reporting live in Oxnard, I'm Chris Wolf. Frank.
No, keep it going.
Back to you.
Chris, this is unbelievable. Have you had a chance to talk to any of the students on that campus?
No, we haven't. Right now, they've been the administrators have been keeping a close watch on all the students. This is a special testing day, so they had only a half day. They were scurried onto the school buses and let out of here. We have not had a chance to talk to any students yet, but we plan to before tonight.
All right, Chris Wolf, thank you for that report.
Okay, I love that. Have you had a chance to ambush the kids yet and find out how shocked they are? And, you know, because this is a terrible thing of, you know, sex in the junior high. So probably the best thing to do is to go talk to the students about sex in their classroom. Be like, did you see the blowjob? Did you see it? Did you tape it at all? You got the tape? Because we got much more on this story. This story kicks ass. It's rocking and shocking. God, they're so excited over it.
They are excited over it. Look, it's Oxnard, California. Like, this is probably the most exciting news that they've had in the past 5 years. Like, what happens in Oxnard?
Usually what happens in Oxnard stays in Oxnard, but not in this case. Look, here's what I know about some of the parents. They didn't sign any documents.
No. I love Sylvia Ramirez. She was the best.
She was. I loved her. She's like, I didn't sign up for no live sex in the classroom. They're like, hey, you need to hush up, okay? Don't talk to the press. She's like, get out of the way. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to talk to the press because I didn't sign no documents. Now, look, on the teacher's situation, no one actually said he was watching. Mm-hmm. Every press report says that he was sitting, or he or she was sitting nearby. Now, to me, that's a very, very relevant factor. They're watching a movie. It's dark, right? It's possible that the teacher doesn't see it at all. Now, if you can't prove that the teacher saw it, no, then I'm going to let her go or him go. I mean, if he has no idea what's going on, yeah, he should have paid a little bit more attention, slap on the wrist, whatever. If the perv is watching, okay, then we got a serious, pervy wanker alert, and 98% chances a dude, and then no, he's got to go. I mean, you got to, obviously, 7th and 8th grade, you got to stop that. What are you, nuts? And so you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
so that's a huge distinction. Now, the kids, obviously, they're in a lot of trouble. The kids, man, God, if I was the parents, I'd be so devastated by it.
Of course.
At the same time, does it make sense that, what do? We expel them? I guess, because you want to make sure it doesn't happen again, but then you're going to mess up their lives when they already probably feel horrific.
They've already messed up their lives. Now there are videotapes of them giving each other oral sex. That's the worst move ever, okay? You don't want that out there. But anyway, look, I think this is such a sad case, all right? It's depressing, and look, this is kind of off on a little tangent, but I think that teachers should avoid showing movies in class.
Oh, you're so
No. No. I'm serious. I'm being 100% serious. Look, I was in high school not too long ago. I was in middle school not too long ago, okay? You want to know when teachers showed films in classes? When they didn't want to teach.
Yeah, I know, but that was awesome.
No, it's not awesome, though. Teach your kids. Don't show The Lion King during reading class.
No.
It was a reading class, by the way. It was a reading class. A reading class.
So maybe they put in closed caption and they were reading the subtitles.
Oh, please.
Okay.
Why are you showing a film in reading class?
All right, I got to tell you 2 quick stories. One, 11th grade, Mr. Pember decides teaching Grapes of Wrath is kind of a pain in the ass. Instead of reading the whole book, he shows us the movie. Problem solved.
No.
We loved Mr. Pember.
It's not a problem solved. It's not.
All right. Point number 2. Then Mr. Munyon in senior year decided to show a movie in class. Turns out the lights. I go snuggle up with my girlfriend, okay, and I'm making out with her or something. And back then, they didn't have cameras and they weren't doing oral or nothing. No, but we were just like, kissing her or something like that. And then Mr. Munyon gets up and he's like, Mr. Uger, this is English class. Not a drive-in. Mr. Munyon was old school. He was the guy who gave me a really great recommendation because I did really well in the first part of the year. And in the second part of the year, after I got into college...
And he wanted to take the recommendation back?
Yeah, he's the guy who wanted to take the recommendation back. He's the one that didn't let me go on a class trip because I hadn't turned in like 95 homework assignments. And he's like, until you turn those in, you ain't going on any trip. And I was like, no, you don't understand. It's a constitutional law competition, and we're, like, in the finals. He said, yeah, that's cool. And you'll go to the finals once you turn in all your homework. I kind of like Mr. Money. He regulated. So, anyway, I'm not buying what she's selling. But if the teacher watched, super pervy wanker, gotta go.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But like you said, there needs to be some evidence that he was watching. So.
Yeah. Look, we're merciful. Okay. And one last thought on that story. It was shocking. Shocking. Oh, my God. We're going to have so much more on this. This is a ratings bonanza. I mean, I am outraged. Outraged. Okay. Am I being too harsh on the local reporters?
No, I think you're correct, okay? And what I loved as well was the female anchor and how she was very somber throughout the whole thing. Like her low tone and...
We're going to have so much more on this later. This is a very serious thing that's happening here, okay? Everybody be cool. Be cool. Okay.
All right. So now we have another video that has to do with young kids, 7-year-olds, performing a dance routine to Beyonce's Single Ladies. All right.
Now, there's controversy here.
Oh, there is controversy. I have strong opinions on this. A lot of people are probably going to disagree with me. But let's
that sounds fun already. And this is a very interesting video, so let's watch. no matter what you think of it, that was amazing.
Yeah, that was amazing. They're really good dancers.
All right, now,
That said,
now.
Release the Kraken.
Way too young.
Oh,
Come on, too young.
soon. Too soon.
Look. They're super talented, great dancers. There are too many pervs out there, okay? They're dressed way too skimpy, and they're gyrating on a stage. No, too young.
Well, I'm going to thread a line here. Okay, first of all, they were fantastic, okay? And they remind me of my friend's daughters dancing around, and I love them. I think they're so cute and everything, right? Now, I don't mind so this is the line I'm threading. I don't mind the gyrating. That's part of the song, and they did a great job with it. I know that's a borderline, but I'm going to let it go. They just weren't wearing enough clothes. That's the thing, right? Because, of course, they're 7 years old. They don't mean anything by it. And 99.9% of the people in the crowd don't mean anything by it, and they're super cute, and everybody's having fun. But you're right. We're all old enough to know that there are terrible dudes in the world, okay? And I just, for the 7-year-olds to wear that little clothing while they're gyrating, maybe we're Grandpa Jenk and Grandma Anna here, but I was just made a little uncomfortable with it.
Yes.
God, don't get me wrong, they just put on a little bit more clothes, and then I go to loving it. I think it's like the cutest thing in the world. All right, JR, regulate.
No. I don't know. It's like you were saying, they're great dancers. Actually, the most impressive part was the spins they were doing. Like that's really hard if you really know much about dancing. When they kept spinning on one foot, that was nearly impossible. A lot of adults can't do that. But now I was thinking that with the more clothes maybe it'd be fine. But there's a couple moves once they start pushing boobs that aren't there out, and then squatting down and splits. Now sometimes the splits done like as in ballet. If young girls can do ballet, it's fine, whatever. But these are like suggestive splits and dips, and it's hinting at sex. That's all. So the things that these kids don't have and aren't using, they shouldn't be flaunting. That's all.
There's this one point where they're doing the eagle. I don't know if you caught that. And that I was like, no, they're doing the eagle. They can't do the eagle. That's too much. That's too much. But look. I agree. Maybe if they were dressed a little more conservatively, maybe the gyrating wouldn't bother me as much. But there were definitely moves there that were extremely sexual in nature, and that made me uncomfortable. And look, this reminded me of back in the day when I was a dancer, right?
Oh, please. Back when Master Casper was a ballerina. Which she was, literally.
I was a ballerina, but I wasn't strictly a ballerina. I also did jazz and a bunch of other things.
Okay.
All right,
Who's dancing with these stars? Okay.
Whatever. When I was 7...
Oh, how much do you want to be on that show?
So much.
Oh, God, that's like your dream, right?
It is my dream, yes.
Like, my dream is like to... I mean, I got a lot of dreams, but one of them is to, like, announce Monday Night Football, to be the color guy, right? And I would just be like, that kid, Eddie George sucks. He's washed up. And everybody gets mad at me, but it's totally true. Okay. And your dream is to go on Dancing with the Stars. All right.
So when I was 16 or 17, the dance studio that I was with was super careful about the routines we did. They didn't want to do anything too sexual in nature because we have a bunch of parents watching, whatever. But one year they hired this jazz teacher, and she decided to create this routine, and the song was Criminal by Fiona Apple. And that song is super sexy. I've been a bad, bad girl. Like, that's how it starts.
Wow, Master Casper.
I've been careless with a delicate man. And it's a slow, sultry song, and we're, like, dancing to it. And I'll never forget that performance. We're in front of all the parents, and you can see them in the crowd just, they're not watching. Or, like, my dad was like this.
Here's what Mr. Kasparian is not interested in, that song. Okay, so how old were you at the time?
16 or 17.
Oh.
Which is different. I'm not 7, right? There's no comparison to that Single Ladies video we just saw.
Right.
But it makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And obviously that made a lot of people uncomfortable. And then I'm sure a lot of people will be outraged that people are uncomfortable by it. So that's the great fun controversy of it. But actually my favorite moment of this story was JR's camera shot. Well, 1, where it was, then 2, where we moved it. So you first...
It's just back there.
Yeah. First you saw Hammering Tom Hank kind of like wander out of the shot. When he realized he's on camera, he's like, oh, this is kind of uncomfortable. Okay. And then when Andrew kind of moved the camera, and then you see Jesus like, Okay. All right. Anyway, we're having fun. Listen, we got to take a quick break here, but we'll be right back.